In this video, we're going to reveal the one critical mistake that led to the total loss of a sailboat and nearly cost the lives of a Brazilian couple living their dream at sea. They had the boat, the plan, and the passion. But all it took was a single misstep, and everything changed in an instant. From the calm of open water to a terrifying rescue operation, their story is a powerful reminder of how unforgiving the ocean can be. This isn't just about one accident. It's about the hidden risks every sailor faces, especially those chasing freedom on the high seas. We'll break down exactly what happened, how it could have been prevented, and why even experienced cruisers aren't immune to fatal errors. By the end of this video, you'll understand what went wrong, what should have been done differently, and how you can avoid the same fate. If you sail or dream of sailing, this is a lesson you can't afford to miss. So tighten those lines and stay with us. The ocean doesn't give second chances, but knowledge just might. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more real-life sailing stories, hard lessons, and essential tips to keep your dream afloat. Let's set sail. Picture this. It's July 18th, 2022, a warm morning off the coast of Bahia, Brazil. The sun is climbing in the sky, the sea is calm, and the horizon stretches endlessly before the Adventus, a 12-meter fast 410 sailboat. On board are Roberto Soares, a weathered sailor known as Betão, his partner Joyce do Nascimento, and a crewmate, Mauricio. For Roberto and Joyce, this isn't just a boat. It's their home, their livelihood, their dream. They've spent years living aboard, offering sailing tours in parody, and planning epic voyages, including a round-the-world adventure. They're experienced, capable, and deeply in love with the sea. But in a single moment, everything they've built is about to come crashing down. At around 8:30 a.m., 21 nautical miles off the coast between Ilhéus and Una, the Adventus strikes something hard. The impact is sudden and catastrophic, a violent jolt that reverberates through the hull. Roberto rushes below deck and finds water pouring in, fast. The boat's keel and hull are critically damaged, and no amount of pumping can stem the flood. Within minutes, it's clear. The Adventus is going down. The crew scrambles to a small inflatable dinghy, grabs a radio, and sends a distress call. By noon, the Brazilian Navy rescues them, bringing them safely to the fishing terminal in Ilhéus. They're alive but shaken. Behind them, their home, their possessions, everything from Joyce's engagement ring to their clothes, sinks to a depth of 40 meters. The dream they've poured their hearts into is, quite literally, underwater. So what caused this disaster? The official report states the Adventus collided with an unidentified object. But as we dig deeper, a clearer picture emerges. The incident occurred in the heart of humpback whale season, a time when these massive creatures migrate to the warm waters of Bahia to breed and nurse their young. The region, particularly around Abrolhos, is a known hotspot for humpbacks, and collisions with boats aren't uncommon. Experts from the Humpback Whale Institute in Brazil estimate that dozens of such incidents occur each year, especially with silent vessels like sailboats, which whales can't easily detect. The Adventus likely struck a humpback whale, an animal that can weigh up to 40 tons and measure 16 meters long. The force of such a collision could easily shatter a sailboat's keel, and that's exactly what happened. But here's the critical question. Was this just bad luck, or was there a mistake, a single avoidable error that led to this tragedy? After analyzing the incident, interviewing sailors, and consulting maritime safety guidelines, we believe the answer lies in one critical oversight: the failure to take adequate precautions during whale season. This wasn't about inexperience or reckless navigation. Roberto was a seasoned sailor, and the Adventus was well-equipped. The mistake was subtler but no less deadly. They didn't adjust their sailing practices to account for the heightened risk of whale encounters in July, a peak month for humpback activity. And this misstep holds lessons for every sailor, from weekend cruisers to live-aboard dreamers. Let's break this down. Humpback whales are majestic but unpredictable. They often rest near the surface in a behavior called logging, or they make sudden dives and breaches. A sailboat moving at even a moderate speed, say 6 to 8 knots, can't stop or swerve quickly enough to avoid a whale that surfaces unexpectedly. In the case of the Adventus, we don't know the exact speed or whether they had a lookout posted, but the rapid sinking suggests a high-impact collision, likely at cruising speed. Maritime safety experts, including those from the Brazilian Navy and the Humpback Whale Institute, emphasize that during whale season, sailors must adopt specific strategies to minimize these risks. The Adventus crew either didn't know these strategies or didn't implement them fully, and that's where the fatal error lies. What should they have done differently? First and foremost, they could have reduced their speed. Studies show that slower speeds, below 10 knots, give both whales and boats more time to react. A slower vessel is also less likely to cause catastrophic damage in a collision. In high-risk areas like Bahia's coast, some experts recommend speeds as low as 4 to 6 knots during whale season. This might seem tedious for sailors eager to cover distance, but it's a small price to pay compared to losing everything. Roberto and Joyce were on a long passage from Parody to Recife, a route that demands efficiency. It's possible they prioritized speed over caution, a temptation many sailors face. But in whale territory, efficiency can be a trap. Second, they could have maintained a more vigilant lookout. Whales often give subtle signs of their presence, blows from their spouts, ripples on the surface, or even breaches in the distance. A dedicated crew member scanning the horizon, especially during daylight hours, can spot these cues early. Modern technology, like forward-looking sonar or even binoculars, can enhance this vigilance. But sailboats, especially short-handed ones like the Adventus with only 3 aboard, often rely on autopilot and minimal crew activity during long passages. If no one was actively watching, a whale could have surfaced directly in their path with no warning. The ocean is vast, but in whale season, it demands constant attention. Third, they could have altered their route to avoid known whale hotspots. The area between Ilhéus and Una is close to the Abrolhos Archipelago, a marine sanctuary teeming with humpbacks from June to November. Navigational charts and seasonal advisories from the Brazilian Navy highlight these zones as high risk. By sailing closer to shore or further offshore, the Adventus might have reduced its exposure. Route planning isn't just about wind and currents. In whale season, it's about biology. Roberto, as an experienced sailor, likely had access to these advisories. But long passages can breed complacency. It's easy to assume it won't happen to us until it does. Now let's address a secondary but significant factor. The Adventus had no maritime insurance. While this didn't cause the collision, it amplified the consequences. When the boat sank, Roberto and Joyce lost not just their home, but their financial stability. They had to rely on crowdfunding to raise the estimated $30,000 needed to salvage the wreck, a grueling process that involved divers attaching air-filled barrels to the hull to float it from 40 meters deep. Insurance could have covered the salvage, repairs, or even a replacement boat, softening the blow. Many sailors, especially liveaboards on a budget, skip insurance to save money. But as this case shows, it's a gamble that can leave you with nothing. The lack of insurance wasn't the critical mistake that sank the boat, but it was a planning failure that made recovery exponentially harder. So how do we analyze this error in context? The failure to take whale season precautions wasn't malicious or incompetent. It was human. Sailing is a balance of freedom and discipline, and even seasoned sailors can let their guard down. Roberto and Joyce were living their dream, navigating a route they knew well, on a boat they'd poured their hearts into. The idea of a whale collision might have seemed like a distant risk, not an immediate threat, but the ocean doesn't care about your experience or your dreams. It's a place where small oversights can cascade into catastrophe. The Adventus didn't sink because of a storm or a mechanical failure. It sank because the crew didn't fully adapt to the seasonal hazards of their environment. That's the lesson here. No matter how skilled you are, you're never above the need for vigilance. Let's zoom out and look at the broader picture. Whale collisions are a growing concern worldwide, especially as humpback populations recover from decades of whaling. In Brazil alone, the Humpback Whale Institute reports that sightings have increased dramatically since the 1980s, with thousands of whales visiting the coast each year. This is a conservation success story, but it comes with new challenges for mariners. Similar incidents have occurred elsewhere. Take the case of the Gosto d'Agua II, a sailboat from Santa Catarina that struck a whale in the same region just weeks after the Adventus incident. That boat survived, but the crew described the impact as like hitting a wall. Or consider the fishing vessel in the Bay of All Saints, Bahia, that was left adrift in September 2022 after a whale collision. These aren't isolated events. They're part of a pattern. And as whale populations grow, sailors must adapt or face the consequences. What can you do to avoid the same fate as the Adventus? Let's get practical. If you're sailing in whale-prone areas, start by researching the season and the hotspots. In Brazil, that means June to November along the coast from Rio de Janeiro to Pernambuco, with extra caution near Abrolhos. Check navigational advisories from local authorities, like the Brazilian Navy's seasonal bulletins, which often include whale warnings. Apps and websites, such as those from the Humpback Whale Institute, can provide real-time sighting data. Knowledge is your first line of defense. Next, adjust your sailing habits. Keep your speed low, ideally under 10 knots and slower in high-risk zones. Post a lookout during daylight hours, even if it means rotating crew every hour. Use binoculars to scan for blows or breaches, and consider investing in forward-looking sonar if your budget allows. These systems can detect large objects ahead, though they're not foolproof for whales. If you spot a whale, give it a wide berth, at least 100 meters per international guidelines. And don't assume a whale will move out of your way. They're often oblivious to boats, especially sailboats with minimal engine noise. Route planning is another key tool. When possible, avoid known whale congregations, even if it means a longer passage. In Bahia, this might mean staying closer to shore or further offshore, depending on the charted hotspots. Plot your course with whale season in mind, just as you would for weather or currents. And don't skip the basics. Ensure your boat has a robust emergency plan, including a reliable dinghy, an EPIRB or PLB for distress signals, and a VHF radio with backup power. The Adventus crew survived because they had a dinghy and a radio, but not every sinking allows time for such measures. Finally, let's talk about insurance. It's not glamorous, but it's essential. A good maritime policy can cover collisions, sinkings, and salvage costs, protecting your dream from financial ruin. Shop around for plans that fit your budget and read the fine print to ensure whale collisions are covered. Some policies exclude animal strikes. If Roberto and Joyce had insurance, their recovery might have been less harrowing. Don't let cost-cutting leave you exposed. The story of the Adventus doesn't end with a sinking, and that's what makes it so compelling. After the disaster, Roberto and Joyce refused to give up. They launched a crowdfunding campaign, rallying friends, family, and strangers to help salvage their boat. On August 13, 2022, just a month after the sinking, divers raised the Adventus from the seabed in a complex operation. The boat was towed to Salvador, where it's now undergoing a $30,000 restoration at Marina Aratu. Roberto estimates it'll be saleable in 4 months and fully restored in a year. Their resilience is inspiring, but it's also a reminder of the stakes. They lost everything: clothes, electronics, even Joyce's engagement ring. Yet they're still fighting to rebuild. "The dream can't end like this," Roberto said in an interview. "The sea is unpredictable, but it's our home." This brings us to the heart of the lesson. Sailing is about respecting the ocean's power, not defying it. The critical mistake that sank the Adventus wasn't a dramatic blunder. It was a failure to adapt to a known risk. Whale season isn't a secret. It's documented, predictable, and manageable. But it requires discipline, awareness, and a willingness to prioritize safety over convenience. Roberto and Joyce paid a heavy price for that oversight, but their story offers a chance for others to learn. As you plan your next passage, whether it's a coastal hop or a transoceanic adventure, take this to heart. The ocean is a place of wonder, but it's also a place of consequences. Check the season, slow down, stay vigilant, and plan for the worst. Get insurance, not because you expect to sink, but because you can't afford to lose everything. The Adventus wasn't lost to a freak accident, it was lost to a preventable error. Don't let your dreams sink for the same reason. Before we wrap up, let's reflect on what Roberto and Joyce have shown us. They're not just victims of a tragedy, they're proof that the human spirit can endure even the worst setbacks. Their determination to salvage and restore the Adventus is a testament to the passion that drives sailors. But passion alone isn't enough. Knowledge, preparation, and respect for the sea are what keep you afloat. So the next time you cast off, carry their story with you. Let it remind you that every passage is a test, and every precaution is a lifeline. If this story hit home, give us a thumbs up and share it with your sailing friends. Subscribe for more real-world lessons, from epic adventures to hard-won wisdom. And drop a comment. Have you ever had a close call with wildlife at sea? What precautions do you take in whale territory? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, fair winds and safe seas. Stay sharp out there.